The Senate Hall is empty. Marble pillars rise like frozen witnesses. The echoes of fallen emperors linger in the cold air, whispering secrets you were never meant to hear. Tacitus once wrote, "The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws." A single sentence. But it is not law he is condemning. It is us, human nature, that restless hunger for control, that desperate need to bind others because we cannot govern ourselves. Centuries later, another voice rises from Florence. Machiavelli, sharp as a dagger, says, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Two men separated by time. One, a Roman historian watching his world decay from within. The other, a Florentine diplomat teaching princes how to survive in a world that would devour them. Tacitus wrote in shadows. He chronicled emperors who ruled with poison and whispers. He showed how flattery killed faster than blades, how honor rotted beneath the weight of ambition. Machiavelli, more audacious, did not mourn corruption. He studied it, refined it, turned it into a manual for survival. Yet both men agreed on one thing. Human nature is cruel, not by accident, by design. Look closer at their words. Tacitus does not scream. He dissects. He paints a world where senators betray friends over supper, where generals invent enemies just to remain necessary, where loyalty is performed only under the gaze of power. Machiavelli? He simply tells you what Tacitus showed. Rulers must deceive. Subjects must obey. Morality is a luxury for the powerless. Do you feel the weight of this? The cold realization that human society is not built on virtue, but on fear, cunning, and the slow erosion of trust? Pause. Ask yourself, what kind of world do you live in now? One ruled by ideals, or one guided by the same brutal logic that governed Rome and Renaissance Florence? Imagine standing in the Forum of Rome at night. The torches flicker against the Senate walls. Statues of old generals cast long shadows across the stones. Somewhere, deep in the palace, an emperor signs another death warrant. Not because of guilt, but because suspicion alone is fatal. Tacitus whispers from the grave, "Power is most secure when fear is more powerful than punishment." And Machiavelli answers across time, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Do you see it now? Two philosophies entwine like serpents around the spine of history. Tacitus warns of corruption eating an empire alive. Machiavelli shows you how to wield corruption as a tool before it swallows you whole. And you, where do you stand? Would you cling to ideals or learn the darker game of survival? This is not history. This is a mirror held up to human nature, to the rulers who lead, to the crowds who follow, to you. Every great civilization wrestles with this question. Can power be clean, or is blood the ink of every law? Fear the mortar of every empire? The Romans could not answer it. The Florentines could not answer it. Can you? Before you move on, look around your own world. Listen to the language of politics. See how leaders smile while sharpening their knives. Notice how virtue is sold a spectacle, while ambition hides behind closed doors. Tacitus saw this 2,000 years ago. Machiavelli codified it 500 years ago. And now, you live inside it. 4 dark lessons await, each one sharper than the last. Each one cutting deeper into the illusions of morality, justice, and loyalty. But before we descend into them, ask yourself, whose voice will guide you? The chronicler who mourned corruption, or the strategist who embraced it? Share your thoughts below. Which side of human nature Do you see ruling your world today? And stay, because the next lesson is about fear. Fear that rules more deeply than love. The night is heavy over Rome. A soldier's torchlight dances across cold stone. You stand before the Senate steps, watching shadows whisper more loudly than voices. Fear, not loyalty, keeps the empire alive. Tacitus knew it. He had seen senators clap for tyrants they despised. Wives poison their husbands to avoid suspicion. Friends betray friends just to breathe another day. He wrote, "The desire for safety stands against every great and noble enterprise." Safety, the instinct that twists men into flatterers, rulers into tyrants, nations into prisons. Fear, he says, is the silent architect of human behavior. Love? It is a luxury, a fragile thread that snaps when the blade of power cuts close. Centuries later, Machiavelli sharpened this truth into a weapon. He dared to say aloud what Tacitus had implied. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. A dangerous claim, yet he did not whisper it in secret. He carved it into the prince, handing rulers a map for control. But listen carefully. Machiavelli did not dismiss love entirely. He knew love could inspire loyalty, but only until circumstances changed. Fear, on the other hand, does not sway with the wind. It binds like iron chains. Tacitus witnessed fear's dominion firsthand. When Tiberius ruled Rome, accusations became currency. One word, treason, could erase a life. Men smiled at their oppressors, laughed at their jokes, and dined with them, all while plotting their survival. Was it loyalty? No, it was calculation, the desperate dance of fear. Machiavelli would argue this was inevitable. Humans, he wrote, are ungrateful, fickle liars, deceivers. Love binds only as long as it serves self-interest. But fear? Fear makes rebellion unthinkable. Here is the dark lesson. Humans may admire virtue, but they obey fear. Now ask yourself, look around your own world. What holds your society together? Trust or the quiet threat of consequence? Think of the workplace. Do employees work late because they adore their boss, or because failure carries punishment? Think of politics. Do citizens obey laws because of moral conviction, or because fines, shame, and prison stand at the gates? Tacitus would tell you this is decay. That fear corrodes the human spirit. That when a society obeys out of terror, its soul dies long before its body collapses. Machiavelli would shake his head. He would call Tacitus naive. Men are driven by two principal impulses, he wrote, either by love or by fear. But love, he insists, is unreliable. Fear lasts, yet fear carries its own danger. Push too far, and fear turns to hatred. Hatred breeds conspiracies, plots, assassinations. Tacitus recorded this too. Emperors who ruled by terror often met their end by the very blades they inspired. So where's the balance? Machiavelli offers one. A ruler should be feared, but never hated. He must appear just enough, merciful enough, to keep hatred from boiling over. But beneath it all, the shadow of fear must remain. This is a cruel paradox. Love can be broken by misfortune. Fear can be sharpened too much. Yet one is soft, the other brittle. Neither is unshakable. What does this mean for you? For your world? It means you must ask hard questions. Would you rather live under a leader who inspires love, or one who commands fear? And more dangerously, which would you become if power rested in your hands? Would you risk being loved Knowing love can turn cold, or would you cloak yourself in fear? Knowing fear may one day betray you, Tacitus leaves us no comfort. He shows the empire rotting beneath the weight of suspicion. He writes of men paralyzed, speaking in riddles to avoid being accused of treason. Fear preserved the throne, but it poisoned the state. Machiavelli, cold as stone, offers no mourning. He speaks to survival, not justice, not virtue, only survival. Which one speaks to you? Think on this, because the next lesson is even darker. Morality itself is just another mask. The Roman Forum at dawn. Golden light falls over statues of men who spoke of virtue. Their marble eyes stare into eternity. But behind their stories lies betrayal, cruelty, and ambition. Tacitus writes, "All things atrocious and shameless flock together under the name of progress." Virtue was paraded in Rome like a festival mask. Senators spoke of honor while counting bribes. Generals invoked the gods while plotting treason. Even emperors performed piety while drowning their courts in poison and blood. The lesson? Morality is not the foundation of power. It is its costume. Machiavelli knew this well. In The Prince, he says, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Appearances, illusions, masks. This is the theater of human nature." Tacitus observed how emperors cloaked tyranny in noble words. Nero claimed to love the people while bleeding them for his pleasures. Domitian spoke of justice while sharpening the blade of his assassins. Yet the people cheered. Why? Because appearances soothe the conscience. Because humans crave the illusion of morality, even when they know the truth lurks behind the curtain. Machiavelli does not condemn this hypocrisy. He weaponizes it. He writes that a ruler must appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, but be ready to act against those very virtues whenever necessary. Dark psychology speaks here. Humans do not follow goodness. They follow the image of goodness. It comforts them. It justifies obedience. It allows cruelty to wear a crown of light. Ask yourself, do you see this in your world? Do leaders speak of freedom while expanding control? Do corporations preach ethics while exploiting labor? Do individuals parade morality online while their private lives tell another story? You know the answer. Tacitus would sigh in recognition. He wrote history not to glorify Rome, but to peel away its disguises. His chronicles are filled with men who praised virtue by day and practiced vice by night. Machiavelli would smile at this cynicism. He would say, "Of course, that is the game." Humans do not want raw truth. They want symbols. They want to believe their rulers are just, even when justice is a tool of convenience. Here lies the brutal lesson. Morality is rarely a principle. It is a performance. But why does this matter? Because once you see the mask, you cannot unsee it. Once you realize virtue is often strategy, your trust begins to unravel. And yet, do not dismiss morality entirely. For even as a mask, it is power. A ruler who abandons the appearance of virtue invites rebellion. A society that abandons its moral theater descends into chaos. Tacitus knew this. He saw what happened when emperors dropped their masks completely, when cruelty became spectacle, when corruption became open policy. The people could tolerate hypocrisy, but naked brutality broke the illusion. Machiavelli, however, cautions rulers to maintain the performance, to wear the mask at all times, to speak of justice, mercy, and faith while holding daggers in the dark. It is a chilling insight. Morality, even when false, is essential. not because it is real, but because humans cannot function without it. So where does that leave you? Do you believe in virtue? Or do you believe only in its mask? Pause. Look inward. Are your own actions guided by pure conviction, or by how they will be seen? The line between sincerity and performance is thinner than you think. Tacitus mourns his duplicity. He writes as if history is a tragedy of lost ideals. Machiavelli accepts it. He makes no apology for human nature. He simply says, play the role or be destroyed. Which voice feels closer to truth? Which do you follow in your own life? The voice that hopes for virtue, or the voice that calculates survival? These questions burn deeper as we step into the third lesson, where masks fall away completely, because the next truth is harsher still. Power does not just wear morality, it devours those who believe in it. The throne gleams under torchlight. Gold, cold and heavy, reflects the faces of men who would die for it, or kill for it. Tacitus writes, the more submissive the slaves, the more savage the masters. Weakness is not innocence. It is an invitation. Throughout his chronicles, Tacitus shows how power devours those who fail to understand its nature. Naive senators who believe loyalty guarantees safety. Generals who trust in honor rather than intrigue. Citizens who cling to ideals while their rulers sharpen knives in the shadows. One by one they fall, not because they are wicked, but because they are unprepared for the cruelty of human ambition. Machiavelli is even harsher. In The Prince, he writes, a prince who is not wise himself cannot be wisely advised. Translated into human nature, those who lack cunning become prey. Power does not pity the virtuous. It rewards the calculating. The disciplined, the ones willing to see human nature for what it is, self-serving, fearful, and hungry. Tacitus mourns this reality. He describes Rome as a stage where corruption swallows those who believe the play is real. Men of conscience are mocked. Men of integrity are exiled, executed, erased from history. Yet the cunning survive. Those who know when to flatter, when to betray, when to kneel, and when to strike. Machiavelli strips away all sentiment. He tells you plainly, power is not moral. Power is mathematical. It calculates survival. It rewards those who master appearances, fear, and deception, and it consumes those who hesitate. This is not just ancient wisdom. It is a mirror. Look around your world. Do promotions go to the most virtuous or the most strategic? Do nations reward honesty or influence? Do leaders fall because of their crimes or because they fail to hide them well? You know the answer. Tacitus would whisper, this is decay. Machiavelli would counter, this is reality. The clash between them is haunting. One writes history as tragedy, watching ideals crushed beneath the heel of ambition. The other writes as a guide, teaching you to adapt before you are crushed as well. But what about you? If power rested in your hands, would you cling to ideals and risk being devoured? Or would you study the shadows, learn the game, and survive? This is not a question of politics alone. It is personal. It touches careers, relationships, reputation. Every day, someone is consumed because they refuse to believe how dark the game can get. They trust appearances. They expect fairness. They misjudge human nature. Tacitus saw it in Rome. Machiavelli saw it in Florence. You can see it now in boardrooms, courtrooms, parliaments, and screens glowing with carefully crafted images of virtue. Yet, here lies the paradox. Those who survive the game rarely escape its cost. The cunning may rise, but they are forever watching their backs. Paranoia becomes their companion. Peace becomes a myth. Tacitus knew this torment. He describes emperors who dined in splendor, but drank from cups of fear. Machiavelli knew it too. His prince may survive, but he never rests. So where does this leave us? With a cruel truth. Power is not a sanctuary. It is a fire, and it consumes the weak, but scorches the strong as well. Which brings us to the final lesson, the darkest of all. Not fear, not masks, not survival, but blood. Because history is not written in ideals. It is written in sacrifice, and often in death. The stones of the Roman Forum are stained, not by time, by blood. Tacitus does not romanticize it. He records executions, poisonings, exiles, not as tragedies of fate, but as the currency of empire. The history of Rome, he implies, is the history of those who bled for it. But whose blood? The tyrants who ruled it, or the innocents crushed beneath their rule? Both. Machiavelli sees no tragedy in this. To him, blood is the ink with which nations are signed into existence. He writes, "A prince must not mind incurring the charge of cruelty for the purpose of keeping his subjects united and faithful." Cruelty, then, is not failure. It is policy. Tacitus recoils from this. Machiavelli refines it. Yet the outcome is the same. Power survives, and history is carved in the flesh of those who live beneath it. Close your eyes. Picture Nero watching Rome burn. Tacitus paints the scene as horror, a mad emperor fiddling while flames consume his city. But imagine Machiavelli standing beside him. Would he condemn the act, or ask how it might be used to strengthen control once the ashes cool? Here is the dark paradox. History remembers cruelty not with disgust, but with fascination. We study conquerors more than healers, tyrants more than saints. Why? Because blood, not virtue, leaves the deepest mark. Tacitus laments this. He writes of men who sought to govern with decency, but were forgotten as quickly as they died. Machiavelli simply nods, because remembrance is not built on goodness, but on impact. What does this reveal about human nature? That morality bends before memory, that power is admired even when it terrifies, that history is less a chronicle of ideals and more a gallery of ruthless survivors. But there is more. Blood is not just literal. It is symbolic. The sacrifices of the weak, the suffering of the nameless, the silent pain behind monuments and victories. Tacitus forces you to feel it, to see the human cost of empire. Machiavelli forces you to accept it, to see that empire cannot exist without cost. And you, where you stand, do you mourn the blood spilled, or do you see it as the price of progress? Think of your world now. Do you believe history is written in ideals, laws, constitutions, treaties? Or do you sense, beneath the ink and marble, a darker truth, that every great achievement hides a ledger of suffering? Tacitus whispers from Rome's shadows. Machiavelli answers from Florence's courts. And together they tell you, human nature demands sacrifice. The only question is, who pays? But this debate does not end here, because now we reach the point where both men speak across centuries, their words clashing like swords. Tacitus, the mournful witness of corruption. Machiavelli, the cold strategist of survival. Their voices collide in the final debate. And you must choose which one speaks the truest darkness about human nature. Two voices, 2 centuries, Two visions of human nature locked in eternal tension. Tacitus watches from the ruins of Rome. Machiavelli writes from the chambers of Florence. And you stand between them, listening as history and philosophy collide like steel. Tacitus speaks first, his tone bitter and weary. Power, once corrupted, devours the soul of a nation. Fear breeds betrayal. Deception erodes trust. And soon, no law, no virtue, no justice remains, only shadows of what might have been. To him, human nature is tragic. It longs for virtue but settles for survival. It speaks of honor but bows to fear. It cloaks greed and morality and calls it progress. He mourns this. He writes not to justify cruelty, but to warn that every empire built on fear and deceit will one day collapse beneath its own weight. But then Machiavelli answers. His words are colder, sharper, like the edge of a blade. Tacitus grieves. I instruct, he says, history does not reward those who dream of virtue. It rewards those who understand necessity. A ruler who clings to morality without power will perish. A nation that refuses cruelty when required will crumble. To him, human nature is not tragic. It is constant, predictable, unflinching in its selfishness. Tacitus leans forward, his eyes dark. And yet, Machiavelli, what is left of a state that survives only by cruelty? When fear replaces loyalty, when mass replaces virtue, when blood seals every decree, what future can such a world hold? Machiavelli does not blink. Survival is the future, he replies. What use is virtue to the dead? The chamber grows silent. Both men stare at you, not at each other, as if waiting for judgment. But perhaps there is no judgment. Perhaps that is a final truth. Tacitus offers more warning. Machiavelli offers pragmatic survival. One grieves what humanity has lost. The other teaches how to navigate what humanity is, which speaks to you. Do you believe power must be bound to virtue, even if history proves otherwise? Do you believe cruelty, deception, and fear are necessary evils to hold civilization together? Or do you see both as right and both as damning? Look around your world. Which philosophy do you see playing out in governments, corporations, courts, and wars? Which one guides the leaders you follow, and the ones you fear? Tacitus whispers of decay. Machiavelli whispers of survival, but neither whispers comfort, because both men agree on one thing. Human nature is not as noble as we pretend. It is driven by fear, addicted to appearances, willing to sacrifice morality for safety, and willing to write its history in blood. As the debate fades, you are left in silence, not the silence of peace, the silence of realization. A realization that every great empire, every powerful ruler, every turning point in history was shaped not by ideals, but by the shadows beneath them. Tacitus sighs. The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws. Machiavelli counters. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Two truths, two blades, two mirrors reflecting the same face, human nature. And now, the choice belongs to you. Whose wisdom do you trust? The historian who mourns the corruption of man, or the strategist who teaches you to embrace it? Leave your answer in the comments. Debate it, challenge it, share which voice you would follow, and why. Because this is not just their debate, it is yours. The torchlight fades. The echoes of Tacitus and Machiavelli linger in the air. Two men whispering from different centuries, yet speaking to the same dark truth. History has no clean hands. Power has no pure face. And human nature? It wears masks, sharpens daggers, and hides behind noble words. But now the question turns to you, not as a spectator, as a participant. Which voice will you follow? Tacitus warns of decay. The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws. His words cut like marble, cold, enduring, unyielding. He tells you that fear and deceit may hold an empire, but only for a time. That corruption rots its foundations, until the stones themselves begin to whisper rebellion. Machiavelli counters with ruthless clarity. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. He offers no illusions, no lamentations, only a manual for survival, a guide for rulers who know that love fades, but fear binds. Both truths hang in the air. Neither wins, because neither can be dismissed. You walk away from this debate carrying more than knowledge. You carry a mirror. Look into it. What do you see? A world longing for virtue, or a world sustained by cunning and fear? And more hauntingly, what would you choose? If the weight of power rested on your shoulders, would you wear the mask of morality? Even as you sharpen your knife in the dark, would you rule through fear? Knowing love can turn cold, would you cling to ideals, even as the world calls you weak? History has shown both paths, but it has never answered which one leads to salvation and which to ruin. That is your question to answer. Share your thoughts below. Who spoke the harsher truth, Tacitus or Machiavelli? Which one reflects the world you see today? Leave your verdict in the comments, and let the debate continue across centuries. If this journey through shadows stirred something in you, the weight of history, the sharpness of philosophy, the raw psychology of power, there are more truths waiting, stories carved in stone, ideas written in blood, legends that refuse to die. Follow this path. Stay with legend's legacy, where the past speaks, and the present dares to listen. Tacitus leaves you with a warning. Power is most secure when fear is more powerful than punishment. Machiavelli leaves you with a challenge. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Two voices, two blades, two truths that cut deeper than time. Which one cuts closer to you?